Hey guys, the Explorer 4 here, the Horror Boy. Welcome back to some more videos. And today, kind of wanted to just do a random one. Of course, been doing a lot of movie reviews as of late. Did the Fly franchise, did a couple request videos. I have a few other reviews to get to still, but just figured I would get on here and kind of make a quick little simple video of me just kind of talking to you guys about movies. Once again, that I just feel are underrated, that I think deserve just a little bit more appreciation. Films that I think, in my personal opinion, are just very underlooked, or just underrated in general. They usually either get a lot of hate, or they get forgotten. And today is a film that I guess in some ways I can see why some people wouldn't enjoy this movie, but I love this movie, and I want to kind of point out the reasons why I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. The Buzz is back. This is the old Blu-ray. I know there's a Scream Factory release out there, but honestly, this Blu-ray is pretty good enough. I'm pretty sure the Scream Factory release is amazing, but this has a commentary, has actually two commentaries. The cutting room floor, which I believe is some featurettes. It does have some making ofs and stuff like that, so it does have features, and the movie does look pretty good on Blu-ray. So, even though I'm pretty sure the Scream Factory edition would be really great, I'm pretty okay with this version. Now, Chainsaw Massacre 2, as I'm slamming it on my desk over here by accident, is not the only Chainsaw Massacre movie that I find to be underrated. Of course, I did a video long ago about Chainsaw Massacre Part 3 and why I think that movie is underrated. And really for two different reasons. That movie to me, I just think has a great atmosphere. I think it's a wonderful sequel. I think Ari Mihailoff is a badass Leatherface. I love the idea of the 15-foot chainsaw. I love the idea of Leatherface having a daughter and her being all twisted and demented. I love the family in that movie. Whether it's the Alfredo character or the Mama character or the Joe Unger character. It's like, we have little Mishap. Or, of course, very earlier role by Viggo Mortensen in that movie. A very underrated film. I think that's a really excellent sequel. Jeff Burr directing that movie. Big fan of Jeff Burr. Love the music in that movie. I mean, I can go on and on. I did a video on that, why I love Chainsaw Massacre Part 3. That one I can just talk about for days, because I think that's really a solid sequel. But honestly, I would say I enjoy this movie just about as much. I put this movie and the third movie in the same kind of category as it goes. The first movie being my favorite, and then 2 and 3 being my second favorites. I can take either or being my second favorite. And I enjoyed this movie in particular because of just how drastically different it is from the first movie. And I feel like, in the same token, that's why most people don't enjoy this movie very much. And that's why with this film, I can kind of understand why people wouldn't like it. It's got a much more comedic tone to it. It's more of a dark comedy. And you either are going to love that aspect of the movie, or you're going to hate that aspect of the movie, because on one hand, it can be looked at as just a crazy gore fest that's just insane and hilarious. Or it can be looked at as goofy and over the top and ridiculous, and, it can go either way. I lean more towards the way of just loving this movie because of how bonkers crazy it is. And to me, personally, I'm glad they went the more comedic route with this film, making it more about humor with the scares, and also more about the gore, being a much more graphic movie. Everything's on screen in this movie, rather than the first movie. You don't really see any gore in that movie. If you really think about it, probably the goriest scene is the ending where the hitchhiker gets run over by the truck. That's really the most goriest scene in that movie. And you don't really see a lot of the violence in that movie. It's more intense. It's like more left to your imagination. But at the same time, with that movie's, the magic of that movie is the fact that when you're watching it, you just feel like you're watching this gore fest, this bloodbath of a film. But there's not really that much blood in that movie. This movie, however, said, alright, we're not going to be able to be as scary as the first movie. We're not going to be able to top the first movie. They acknowledge that. And to be honest, you know what? I was reviewing a movie the other day, The Fly 2. They did the best they could with that movie, but you were never going to top The Fly 1. Just like John Carpenter's The Thing. I don't think the sequel would be able to top that movie just because of how perfect it is. You know, T1 and T2. Terminator 1 and 2. Those movies are a perfect double feature. You're never going to be able to top what T1 and T2 did. At least in my opinion. Even a series like Halloween, where I love Halloween 2 and I love Halloween 4 and 3, but there was never that movie that I thought was as good as the first Halloween. It's just that perfect of a film. Same thing with the original Chainsaw Massacre. That's my favorite horror film of all time. Like, to narrow it down, that's the one that I've probably watched the most, rewatched the most, that I've researched the most, that I'm the biggest fan of. You know, that movie to me holds a very special place in my heart because it was one of those movies that really inspired me to get onto YouTube and do this, but also really inspired me to become a horror fan, and was really, like, with Evil Dead, with Friday the 13th, with Nightmare on Elm Street, was one of those grounding films that got me into being a horror fanatic and to being, you know, a big just supporter of horror films. And Chainsaw Massacre 1 was the biggest reason why I got into the horror genre. At least one of the bigger, you know, reasons why I got into the genre. It's definitely one of the biggest reasons. I mean, there's obviously a lot of movies like Phantasm. I'd say, you know, the Wrong Turn movies. I'd say just a lot of classic 70s, 80s films really got me into the horror genre. But Chainsaw Massacre 2, I seen this one about a year after the first movie, and I didn't know much about the sequels. I really didn't. I knew the trailers because a cool thing about back in when I was probably, I don't know, 13, around there, 12, 13, I used to look up these horror trailers online because I had seen Chainsaw Massacre Part 1, I had seen Evil Dead 1, but I would look up the trailers to the sequels. And I always loved the trailer to this movie, how it's the chainsaw, and they're oiling the chainsaw, and, you know, the buzz is back. Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. I love that trailer. And, you know, watching this movie was a really interesting experience because I quickly realized just how much of a different film this is to the first movie. And it was done like that intentionally, and I feel like you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And I love the movie, though. I think if you approach it as a fun, just absolutely bonkers nuts movie, if you just approach it with a fun mindset and just, you know, go into it for a blast, I think you'll love this movie. I just can't get over how good of a sequel this is and how underrated of a sequel this movie is. Even if you take into the fact that there is a lot of humor, I think it still has amazing gore effects by Tom Savini. The design of Leatherface I thought was different, but still classic. I believe it was Bill Johnson that played Leatherface in this movie. At first, I'll be honest, at first, I didn't like how they made the Leatherface character in this movie. They made him more scared, more nervous, and really tried to push that romantic angle with him and Caroline Williams' character, Stretch. I didn't know how I felt about that at first, but I've warmed up to this version of Leatherface, and I really like this portrayal and performance. I believe by Bill Johnston is his name, but yeah, good Leatherface in this movie to me, very unique, different. But I love the special effects in this movie. I think the gore effects are on point. It's got a wonderful practical effects, whether it's the opening scene where you see a guy get like diagonal slice on his head, and the other half of his head just falls off and you're seeing blood squirt, or a person being hit by a hammer multiple times on the head, or a person literally getting their skin cut off their body. Just some wonderful effects in this movie. And I also love the characters in this movie. Dennis Hopper, I'm not sure if he was a big fan of this movie. I heard somewhere that he wasn't very, pleased with this movie. But I'm not sure if that's true or not, so don't quote me on that. But I thought Dennis Hopper was such a crazy character. I thought he did a good job playing Letty Enright. Just a classic character. Take it to hell. Take it all down. Taking it down to hell. I'm the Lord of the Harvest. Boys, boys, boys. And he's like, I need your help, girl. I used you, but I needed your help. I love this character, Letty Enright. I think he's a great character. Dennis Hopper's acting is on point. Some say it's over the top. I say it's meant to be. It's a character that's kind of like that, and I think he plays it excellently. Caroline Williams as the lead heroine, Stretch. I think that she is a great job at being, she does a great job at being the lead, and her acting is on point, and she's very beautiful, and I think she's a very capable character. And I like how at the end of the movie she gets her badass moment. And I thought she was a great lead, Caroline Williams. Great lead. The music. I thought the score to this movie was very different from the first one. The first movie score really isn't music. It's a lot of sound effects and like various experimental audio tracks. And once again, I feel like with that movie it fit. And this movie, the kind of tone it was going for, the music in this movie really matched the film. It's just really bizarre, synthy, kind of circus-sounding music. I love the music in this movie. I love the songs. The 80s soundtrack is classic. The characters, they're not forgettable. They're very unique. They're very just memorable. Stretch, Lefty, LG, who's this guy who was kind of in love with Caroline Williams, but she didn't know that. Kind of this dude who, spits all the time whenever he gets upset. I'm falling apart on you, girl. Or, even the villains. I mean, you have Leatherface, you have the cook, who's actually played by the same actor, Jim Sedow, I think. But yeah, you have him playing the same character from the first movie. And then you also freaking have Bill Moseley in this movie playing Chop Top, a classic villain. Burn like a rat, burn like a rat, rat, rat. Bubba's got a girlfriend. What's that, the Rambo 3 soundtrack? Nom flashbacks, nom flashbacks. Get that bitch, Leatherface, get that bitch. That's where you keep all the golden oldies, don't you? I can just quote that for days. I love every single scene with Bill Moseley in this movie. I think his acting is awesome. I think Chop Top is a classic character, man. I love the humor. I think it's such a bizarre film with the humor. Whether it's the ice cooler scene, which those of you who've seen the movie know I'm talking about. Such a bizarre scene. Or how at the end of the movie, you literally have Dennis Hopper having a chainsaw duel with Leatherface. I mean, that's fucking awesome. A lot of the other humor I thought was hilarious as well, where this guy's like telling Dennis Hopper's character, he's like, oh, they just got into a car accident. He's like, oh yeah? Well, it must have been some kind of accident because someone got their head chainsawed off. Or when he's, I think it's when Lefty's at the basically where the villains are at, this underground kind of area. Love that too. Good design of that underground lair, I guess you could say. I love that design. The set design in this movie I think is very underrated. There's a lot of massive, good-looking set pieces, all practical. I think that's a big point in this movie that nobody ever talks about. It's just how many unique and different set design choices there is in this movie. So many bright colors, so many lights everywhere, different things you're seeing, skeletons just hanging around. I love the set design in this movie and the setting, the location, the atmosphere. But there's a scene when Dennis Hopper gets to this place and he's like, I'm the Lord of the Harvest. What's that? Some new health food group? I love that. Where's it all? Fuck you, Charlie. The humor I thought was hilarious. When he's buying the chainsaws and he freaking takes them outside. There's gas in them things. You can test them out if you want. So he tests them out. He's just tearing this log to pieces, man. And the guy in the background's like, holy shit. So yeah, the humor is great. It's entertaining. It's a fast-paced movie. It's like an hour and a half, if that. I think it's 101 minutes. This is the uncut version. But still, very short movie, at least pacing-wise. Very fast-paced, energetic movie. The lighting, I thought, was on point. Once again, a great atmosphere. Direction by Tobe Hooper. A lot of energy in these scenes. A lot of these scenes have just a crazy tone to them. And good tension. And there's still quite a bit of horror in there. I mean, that whole ending of the movie where Chop Top is chasing Caroline Williams in this long chase to the top of this mountain, I thought was a great suspenseful segment of the film. And it gave Caroline Williams a good chance to fight back. You know? But yeah, Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, I love it to death, man. It's a great movie. It's funny, it's fun, it's hilarious, it's entertaining, it's very fast-paced, has a good energy to it, and I think that, I think it's a great movie. Definitely underrated. But those are the reasons why I love Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. It's a very different movie, but it was meant to be. It was never going to top the first movie, so they said, fuck it. We're just going to go crazy with this movie, have a fun time making it, and try our best and make it crazy and fun. And I think they did a hell of a job. But yeah, Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 kicks ass. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. A little discussion video on this movie. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. And definitely take care. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.